Welcome back to the Social Web TV, the internet TV show that answers the question, who owns your data? With these two simple words, you do. And here we are up in San Francisco at MySpace for the OpenSocial first birthday event.
Back at MySpace by popular demand. This may be the only the first place we've done on the road twice. It was so good we had to come back for one more time.
Awesome, and we're welcoming special guest from Google and from OpenSocial, David Glazer.
Thank you. With his special birthday cupcake.
Light it up.
Yeah. Woo. All right.
Now, Joseph, are you going to be singing?
It's good to be one.
Yeah, that's right. It's been a good year.
Yes. It's actually been quite a year for opening up the social web, and in a lot of ways, for a lot of people, the very beginning of their awareness of this whole thing was on November 1st, I think, 2007, with the announcement of OpenSocial at an event on the Google campus called Campfire One. So, lots happened in that time.
Yeah, yeah. It's been a great year. It's been fun over the last week of getting ready for this event to just sort of look back and remember what we were hoping to accomplish when we got together with a lot of the people that you see regularly on this program and started talking about how can we help make the web better by making it social. And then looking back and saying what's happened in the last 378 days, and a lot's happened, and a lot of people have helped it happen. So it's been a good first year.
Well, I think OpenSocial was sort of one of those first efforts a year ago that really brought a lot of the more mainstream attention to the idea of opening up the social web.
That's right.
And sort of one of the more concrete things that people are able to build on top of for doing that.
Well, and I think it was one of those cases where there was almost a sense of despair that there was going to be this massive fragmentation of everybody trying to make their own platform, and it was like the browser wars only worse. And then in this sort of single instant of just getting a bunch of people together and saying, hey, you know, actually we could work out the details and work together, why not? This makes sense. And so many of the other big players thought, sure, I'm not going to try to ram my own standard down all these developers. All of a sudden, I think there was kind of a new wave of optimism that may have informed a lot of the other OpenStack technologies we've all worked on since then, of people saying, oh, you know, there's a pattern that seems to be working here. Let's try to stick with that. So I do think it's paid dividends above and beyond specific sort of APIs and things that it's set out to solve.
Well, yeah. Also, OpenSocial taking advantage of things like OAuth and other technologies that have come before it, sort of going and looking at what are some of the best practices, what are people doing, how can we pull that together, how can we build on top of technologies that already exist.
So if we go back 1 year ago to the announcement, I think there was an awful lot of attention and excitement at that time, but really what was launched was 0.5. So really a new platform, but not necessarily fully baked. And I think in the ensuing weeks and months, there might have been some rising skepticism about whether this whole thing could really take off. So I know it's 1 year, a chance we can look back. Why don't you give us a few of the facts? How far has this platform really gone?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I think that when I think about what's gone on with OpenSocial, I usually break it down into three categories. The technology, which is what we tend to think of first as technologists. The community, which is all the people that actually let there be technology. And then the result, which is adoption. What's actually happened? Who cares? Who's taking advantage of the work that we and many others have done together? So on all three of those, on the technology, I think the big advancements have been including ideas from a lot of different people in a lot of places to give folks more flexibility and more tools in how they want to build their social applications. So starting with, in the very beginning of OpenSocial, there was a lot of emphasis on a client-side development model, which was great. It allowed people who wanted to focus there to get started and build apps without having to worry about server infrastructure. We very quickly heard from app developers that some of them wanted to build apps that depended on having server infrastructure. They wanted to leverage the backends they had. And in order to do that, we started to add enhancements into the OpenSocial spec that allowed that to happen. That's where, as David mentioned a minute ago, that's where a bunch of existing work around how can you do that? This is people's social data. How can you actually share that over wires with who knows who in a secure way? That is a fundamentally hard problem. The good news is the community's been working at solving that hard problem for a while, and OAuth has thought through all of the multi-party handshaking with cryptographic security where needed so that you can actually have multiple parties agree on how to share data in a good way. The ability to do that is what allows you to open up programming models to be server-side or client-side or mixed. That's what's been happening in the standard. So, a lot more we could say about that, and if people are interested later on, I can chat about some of the things that are coming next. But that's probably the big thing that has happened to date on the technology is the addition of server-side protocols that let you build social apps that are loosely coupled to the container in which the data comes from. So
and increasingly letting you connect outside of the social network as well and bring that data to other websites as well once you've sort of got those standard APIs in the cloud, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a simple mantra that we sometimes talk about what's the goal? How will you know when the web has really become social? How will an end user know when the web has become, has gotten social baked in? And it's when you can do anything you want with anyone you want, anywhere you want, right? You should be able to run any interesting application that lets you interact with your friends. You should be able to do that wherever you happen to be, on the web, on your phone, in a car, in a plane, whatever. You should be able to do that on any site or off any site. And you should be able to do that with any set of people you care about. So you should not be limited to, I go to this place on the web when I want to do this activity with these people, and I go over there when I want to do that activity with those people. I should be able to work with whoever I want, and I should be able to do that wherever I am, using whatever interesting application. So enabling that, getting closer to any app, any site, any friends, requires the whole open stack that, I don't have the magic to put it right here that I've seen in the past, but the whole open stack that you can imagine right here. It requires all of that to work because then you have open standards around the who am I piece, authentication, and the who do I know piece with things like portable contacts, and trusted ways to share it with things like OAuth to build applications with things like OpenSocial. Now you can really get much closer to any app, any site, any friends. So on the technology side, that's what we've seen in the first year.
And it has been interesting to see, you mentioned the rest of the open stack, it's both the technology level and the community level.
Yes.
There have been all these people now working back and forth and realizing, we are working on a lot of similar problems and there is a lot of complementarity. And so it's been really nice to see that not only technologically are these sort of more than when you put the whole stack together, it's sort of more than the sum of its parts. But I think the communities are also stronger when they're together than when they're each working on their own little piece. So it's been really nice to see that progress.
Yeah, I mean, I think an example of that Joseph isn't taking credit for, but he had a big part of helping bring these two groups together, is Portable Contacts and OpenSocial is a success story of two grassroots open standards finding the right way to work together so that each community got more reach for what it wanted to do in a way that let developers stay lazy, because you win when you let people
Absolutely.
stay lazy.
Yeah.
So that's on the technology side. On the community side, I think the thing that I personally have been most happiest about is how much I've learned about and how much we've seen new community groups just sort of self-organize that have helped move OpenSocial forward, borrowing from all the expertise in a lot of other open source, open standards projects. So the Apache Shindig project, which is a reference implementation of the spec, the way the spec itself governs itself with borrowing from the IETF model of rough consensus and running code is how you move forward. All of those kinds of things have been terrific. I've learned about setting up a nonprofit foundation with a bunch of the other people and sort of what it is and isn't good for. And I realized, it took me a little while to realize that the most important job of the OpenSocial Foundation is get out of the way. And it's stay out of the way and get everything else that isn't technology to help users also out of the way. So that's been one of the interesting community pieces.
There was a great moment this morning in the sort of opening ceremonies around the birthday party where Lane from Google asked, you had a whole packed audience, and he said, raise your hand if you're a lawyer here. And basically no hands went up. And he said, right, that's why we created the OpenSocial Foundation. So exactly you guys can keep coding and we'll take care of the legal stuff behind the scenes. And certainly that's something with all these OpenStack technologies, the failure mode is when the legal stuff takes longer than the technical progress, right? And the success is when we've learned how to set that aside and keep it free and open, and people aren't scared that they can't touch this technology, and we can just work on the hard problems, which are supposed to be the hard problems, which is how do you actually make the code work? How do you actually get people using it?
So that's technology and community. What's the third yardstick?
Third yardstick is adoption. Is anyone using it? Does anyone, is this stuff getting used? And thrilled with what we're seeing there. The roll-up numbers that we put together and put out today say it looks like total reach for people who can run an OpenSocial app in a site that they go to is over 600 million users, and the spread of that reach is worldwide. We have some of the leading social applications on just about every continent, not on Antarctica, on just about every continent that are using OpenSocial as a way to add more things for their visitors to do when they come to their sites, which is terrific. That's the kind of adoption we wanted. We're starting to hear success stories from launches that happen where none of us who think of ourselves as having been at the beginning of OpenSocial have ever heard of it until the launch happens. Terrific. That's how you know a platform is getting somewhere, when people are adopting it without having to talk to anybody. That's a real success story.
That's truly open when you don't need any permission.
That's right. That's right. You don't need permission. You don't even need awareness. Right. That's a platform on its way to maturing. So those are the three: technology.
Yep. And one other one I heard this morning is, in addition to the reach to the 600 million potential users, total number of apps that have actually been installed is some astounding number.
It was, I think, 315 million was the number that we put together, which is that means not only do people have the ability to use these apps, end users are saying, yeah, I want to check that out, I want to try that, I want to use that, which is, again, the whole point.
And we were talking with some of these big social networks, Orkut, High Five, et cetera, and they were all saying, 75%, 80%, 50%, huge numbers of their users have gone and actually installed an app. And so it's, apparently that's over the threshold where there's enough compelling content and it's easy enough to find that this is really starting to add value.
Is Facebook here today?
I think there are some people from Facebook here. They were certainly invited along with everybody. They didn't get a direct invitation, but the public was invited.
Are they doing anything with OpenSocial right now?
I don't know of any work that Facebook is doing with OpenSocial. I know that if you've been listening to what they've been saying publicly, including recently this week, they're very supportive of moving towards open standards, open interoperability around social things. They are very clearly moving in the direction of more social capabilities on more sites across the web, using more of the open stack. How quickly they're moving in that direction would be I'd love to see an episode of this with you asking that question to someone from Facebook.
I also noticed in the news that Microsoft is said to be jumping into the social networking space. Any indications that they might become an open social platform?
Again, that's a question for Microsoft. As we've said, they don't have to talk to anybody from us, from who's currently involved with OpenSocial to do so. Joseph, I think you've spent a bunch of time talking to people from Microsoft about various open stack social.
Yeah, I'd say both Microsoft and Facebook have had a lot of very active participation in these, OpenID and OAuth and portable contacts communities, and so you can never tell exactly what it takes internally to get the right buy-in and resources and everything else to actually ship something, but they're certainly aware and participating, and Microsoft's been very involved in a lot of these things. So, of course, it's all different teams within the organizations and stuff, so it's really hard to figure out where this effort rises above water. But
it's a fascinating question as we looked down the road. If Microsoft ends up creating a really vibrant, successful social network, they will have to answer that same question that every social network faces, which is, how do we get developers creating apps that make that a richer experience?
Right.
And so do they go OpenSocial? Do they do something with Facebook, or do they roll their own? That will be a really interesting one to watch.
Yep. But it's pretty clear that the number of people who are going to be doing social things on the web is large and still rapidly getting larger, right? And so that, I think, gives me a sense of optimism about all of these details. I thought it was cute earlier. We saw this demo of the RockU apps running. It's an OpenSocial app running inside of Facebook because they basically built their own little compatibility layer in between them. So, as long as there's lots of users who want to play with this stuff, I'm pretty confident developers will find a way to make it work. And as more people move towards these open standards, it's just going to get easier for everyone. So I think there's actually a natural, kind of snowball rolling down a hill sort of situation we've got in front of us now.
Well, but at the same time, Microsoft is sort of a unique player here, where Microsoft's history is going and developing platforms, getting people building for
they
platforms.
They do love to build platforms.
Yeah.
So, yeah. but they also love to have developers. So I guess we'll have to see how it all plays out.
And they've also been doing some interesting things lately, working well with the rest of the web stack, and some of the things they're doing in IE8 are interesting.
Yep.
And so Microsoft has
They've become an open ID provider.
So there are a lot of places in the world of web standards where Microsoft's personality is not single valence.
So David, 1 year old, any big surprises over the course of the year? Anything that was unexpected in the development of the platform?
Over the course of the past year, I think that there are no huge surprises, lots of surprises on the details, things that I might have thought were going to be necessary as the first step that was blocking adoption that turned out to be nice to haves, things that I wouldn't have predicted were critical became so. I think when we first launched OpenSocial, we expected that the server-side RESTful protocols were going to be blocking release. Turned out they weren't. There were a whole bunch of applications that people were able to build without them. And that actually, as a result, meant we were able to do, I think, a much richer, more thoughtful job of the community defining those protocols when they did come out. So,
cool. Well, I certainly hope we're here for the second birthday party.
You're
I think
invited.
a lot of changes will come along the way. Any other thoughts in conclusion, David?
I think the only concluding thought is this was the first year. You ask about surprises, and as you start asking the question, I immediately started looking forward and thinking about the things that I hope to be surprised by in the next year. I think we have now built a foundation that allows a lot more people to come up with good ideas and build and extend the platform. The first year we had a lot of you have to get started. And then once we did, we started to see the community innovation really apply on lots of fronts. There's now a large surface area on which people can innovate. So I'm expecting to be surprised and looking forward to being surprised by hopefully what some of you listening to this show today say, it's time for me to check out OpenSocial. I want to see what's happening in 0.9. I think I can do something and solve a problem that no one else has solved yet. And I think we've got enough building blocks I can put them together and surprise these guys. So that's what I'm really looking forward to, is seeing those kind of surprises next year.
It was pretty clear to me from that packed house in there that there is no shortage of developers brimming with enthusiasm and ideas for how to build on this platform and how to make it better. And it seems like there's quite a lot of energy here to keep pushing this forward and keep making it better. And
Yeah, it looked like it might be 250 to 300 people out there. Yeah. Very cool. Well, what an amazing week. This is our first ever double-header week, so it was a blow-away Internet Identity Workshop. In fact, I think we'll probably have to dedicate a show to that next week, all the stuff that happened there. And what a great time at the OpenSocial first birthday event. Should be a cool party tonight, too.
Yep.
David, thanks for coming on. Congratulations
Thank you all.
for the first year of great success for OpenSocial.
happy birthday. Raise your cupcakes.
Happy birthday.
And
I'll eat to that.
to everyone out there, please join us next week for another exciting episode of The Social Web TV.